Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Smart Marketing. I am your host, Jason Verdelli, and today I'm super excited. I have a world-renowned branding expert, Melissa Fritchey, on the line with me. She's also a fellow colleague of mine, and today we're going to be talking about how brands should be shifting their strategy towards the new norm. And Melissa, welcome to my first episode here. Super excited to have you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm delighted to be the first guest.
Yes. Well, you got to start. You have to start with one, right? You got to get one listener, at least one guest, and kind of go from there, right? That's kind of how things move. It's just getting everybody to say yes, right? So let's dive in. Melissa, just before we get started, just tell our guests a little bit about your background, kind of how you got to where you're at today, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Communications and a Master's in Communications and Journalism. And I started out in a relatively small marketing department and kind of worked my way up for a relatively large financial institution. Ultimately, when branding started becoming a thing, I was totally nerded out on it. Loved it, read everything I could get my hands on. Finally convinced senior management that our institution needed to really invest time and effort into building a brand, developing a complete guide to live by. And so that the day that I found out, again, a little bit of a nerd about this, but the day that I found out that was going to be in the next strategic plan and it was my baby, was like a day I'll always remember. So ever since then, this is something that I don't know. I'm like a magnet to it. And I think I've told you before, I started out as a psych major. And I think that might be why I'm so fascinated with brands, because they're so much like personalities, and understanding them and brands build relationships just like people do. And brands should identify with emotions just like people do. So it all comes back to that love of understanding the psyche.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's, brands are so interconnected to people, right? Like we look at these things that are disconnected. You have a company and you have a person and they're different in some weird way. Really, they're actually the same, right? They have personality, they have tone of voice, a way they speak, and they have a purpose, they have a mission, they have, a vision, and they all have their story, right? So that's awesome. The one thing that, especially talking about, today's topic, and really the purpose of smart marketing is really to gain ideas and actionable tactics and strategies that you can implement in your business, right? So I want to talk about, have you walk away from these interviews and the topics that I cover on this show with something that you can actually implement, right? Versus just the ideas or just the strategies or just the tactics, right? Just understanding tactics is only going to get you so far. So really want to try to bring these things together, really to help, marketing managers, especially marketing managers, marketing directors, people that are controlling brands. This obviously fits in the small business as well for businesses that don't necessarily have a marketing manager. But so again, diving into our topic today, which is, how brands right now should be shifting towards that new norm, especially where, we're in a pandemic right now. And, Melissa, from your perspective, if you're a brand, what is a starting point at this current time? Mind you, this is May 2020 as we're doing this interview.
Right.
But what should brands be doing right
now? First and foremost, considering their audience. And if you haven't developed a brand strategy, now would certainly be a great time to do so. But understanding your brand, who you are, what your audience needs from you, and who your audience is first and foremost the starting point, I would absolutely say. We've been hearing a lot of questions too, though, about, do I communicate and advertise during all of this uncertainty? And we say absolutely, yes, you should. Yeah, it's not business as usual, but people are looking for a sense of normalcy right now. And the key is understanding who your audience is, what they need to hear from you right now, and delivering on that while staying consistent with your brand.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Now, especially in the part of taking a quick step back to say who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
A big thing, and Twitter just put this report. They did research to find out, basically what people are wanting or what users are wanting right now or what they expect from brands, right? So, kind of businesses or brands that are advertising as normal, that aren't shifting their message, are kind of, you're finding a lot more negative comments out there around that, especially if they're running ads or even just the posts that they're putting out there. Twitter, Melissa, I know you've covered some of this, you've done some of this research. What are some of the things that in that report that marketing managers, marketing directors should really know at this point?
People are looking for information, first and foremost, reliable and accurate information. Now, certainly that doesn't necessarily mean for all of us that we're putting out CDC information. That might not be in our wheelhouse, but it could be useful information to our audience, whether it's education on tools that we have that could help them, whether it's, how we're supporting our own community. A lot of consumers want to know how brands are treating their own employees during this. How, are we being a good corporate citizen in-house as well as externally? So they also want to know about, depending again on the industry you're in and who you're serving, customer service. Are you maintaining? Are you still serving them the way they need you to? How have you had to adapt your business model? But big things are the accurate and reliable information, how you're supporting your community, essential workers, your consumers, your employees. And certainly it's helpful if you have been able to adapt your business model during these times, and better serve your audience. But again, not everybody's in a position to do so.
Yep. Well, and with that said, these are the points you touched on here are, they're what's in that report, obviously, and this is coming directly from research that Twitter has completed. I know Facebook and LinkedIn have done some things very similar to this, but what is that role in a company where they say, okay, well, this is what people want, this is what the reports are saying that people want, but what message do we do? We're a law firm. We are a bank, whatever. We're in, how does that, if you're a company right now, marketing manager, how do you know which direction to go in? Really, where does it start? Does it start with that brand strategy?
Absolutely. It starts with the brand strategy in as much as who you are as a brand and your normal tone of voice, your normal brand personality. You might have a brand that is, brings levity. Maybe your tone of voice is humor, and brands are still successfully using that right now. Certainly they have to be sensitive. But if that's your path, we see a lot of brands right now who are just, kind of sharing the positive, helpful, happy stories, and, taking that avenue. Certainly, in addition to understanding who you are as a brand and remaining consistent with that and delivering on that, it's all about knowing your audience. And that's one of the keys in developing your brand strategy, because if you don't know who you're talking to and what problems they have and how their perspective has changed in all of this, then you don't know how to serve them.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I think we get, so we identify, okay, we have to make sure that we have a defined brand strategy. And a lot of businesses don't. When I say brand strategy, this is a document. So if you do not have a Word doc, PDF that has this defined, that defines your purpose, your mission, vision, values, your essence, brand essence, your tone of voice, your brand story, all of these, and your client personas, all these different things, you might know them or might be out there. Like a lot of brands have it, right? They're just not documented, right? So it's not there. And ultimately what that does is it creates that sense of, sort of uncertainty in their part, because they're not sure exactly which direction to go. Do I go towards the humor? Do I go towards, do we kind of target, how do we position our messaging basically? Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that a brand or a marketing manager could be doing right now inside of their company? What are some of the exercises, is it surveys? Is it reaching out and having conversations if they don't have this thing defined? And also, how can they do this rather quickly, right? Because sometimes it can be a long, drawn-out process, and it's like, oh, we don't have time for branding right now. This is like the last time. This is not the time to do it. What are things that people, branding managers can do quickly? But also, again, what are those tactics that they can implement to get this strategy together?
Well, first of all, I would say if they're saying they don't have time for branding, they need to back that up and reconsider, because they need to make time. It starts. It's internal. I mean, certainly surveys, talking to, it provides a plethora of information. If you have a sales team, the people that are out there talking to your customers, you also need to talk to your customers. And again, whether that's reaching out to key customers or sending surveys or emails, whatever the case may be, understanding who you're serving, what value you deliver. And then, kind of once you have all of that, also looking at the competition.
Yeah.
If you don't know what differentiates you from the competition, that's a huge part of your strategy. So once you understand who your audience is and what their pain points are and what emotions are attached to those pain points and how you can help them, mm-hmm. You also need to look at who else is out there doing the same thing and why you're the better choice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's just a matter of, like you said, competition and what they're doing. Obviously, is a very short path to that, because you can simply go on to their Twitter feeds. You can go on to their Facebook or LinkedIn. You can start to, study what they're doing, maybe some of their way they're, do a Google search on your service, what services or products that you offer. And if they're doing Google ads, which are the listings, of course, above the organic or non-paid ads on Google, got the wrong platform there. Then ultimately, if you can see some of the way that messaging has changed, that can give you some ideas. Ultimately, of course, that's not you, right? Like, you're not comparing it. We're talking about the brand being perfect. You got to kind of tailor that. So how do you, if you look at competition and you're studying that as maybe a quick way to see what they're doing, how do you quickly say, well, this is for us, right? This is how we're going to approach it.
Well, some of that should be in the feedback you're getting back from your customers as well as your internal folks. And then some of that you can move that in a certain direction. Like, once you've developed that mission and that vision, all of the positioning should be in alignment with that. So while your brand, one of the famous quotes that I love is, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. You can try to influence it, and you certainly should influence it in the direction that you want it to go, but it's still about what people's perceptions. I mean, we all have them about other people. Again, me going back to humans and the relationships, just like I might meet someone and be introduced to them and not get a warm, fuzzy feeling that, like, well, that's not really someone I want to connect with or work with. People have those feelings about brands. So it's about having those internal discussions and what does your audience need? But B, like, who are we and how, and again, in that conversation, you need to make sure it's something that you can deliver on, but what is our approach to serving those needs?
Yeah.
And attaching human emotional personalities to them, because that's what brands are. So, then there's a whole path you can go down with researching brand archetypes. That's really helpful place to start if you haven't looked at that. So, sorry.
That's
I rambled a little.
No. Well, if anybody to ramble, it would be me. So welcome to the club, I guess. But but no, you're exactly right. Brands and these companies right now is the time. One thing you said, which was really key there, was coming together and having the conversations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're not in the same room and everything else. And things are starting to, eventually going to be reopening here shortly. But now is the time to have those conversations, whether it's Zoom meeting or whether it's whatever system to use to communicate, but just getting a conversation going, because I think ultimately, Melissa, what this ends up in tactfully is your way you're shifting maybe your social media content,
sure,
your ads, if you're running lead generation ads and those types of things, your engagement campaigns that you're using to get people sort of into your funnel, or to get to build that know, like, and trust with your brand, just like you would as with a person. Obviously in the digital space, this is no different, right? We put out content that we want people to engage with, that people are going to share, and ultimately establish a relationship with you because of it, because of the value it brought to them. Ultimately, that is going to, but that shift in messaging and everything else, that's got to stem from a conversation. So, like, one of the biggest things I always said is to get it on the calendar. If it's a once a week meeting that we just talk about our brand right now, which really, if you haven't been doing this for years, or since you really, or even before you started a company, obviously, this is something you probably should have already been doing. But of course, branding is always one of those things that's kind of a secondary thought, right? We lead with our service, we lead with the product, we start businesses because we got a customer or two, and then that kind of led into the next 100 or 200 people that became customers. So with that said, inside of these meetings, so let's, you have these marketing meetings that are happening. What are some of the things that a marketing manager director can do to control the conversation? Because you can easily see where you have a couple executives in a room and everything like that, and it could be kind of going in a bunch of different directions. So what are some of the things that you can do to kind of set a control in that meeting?
Sure. So first of all, basics, I would have an agenda for each meeting and stay on point. Sorry, there was a little interruption there. So no kids or cats, though, unfortunately. Nothing that will make it go viral.
I know. Well, you know what? We could probably edit this video a little bit, throw some cats in there, whatever. At least, so this way, when a person walks by, we can put some kittens over there, some dogs, some cats, or pit bulls in your case. We'll put some.
Yes, absolutely. Rescued pit bulls.
On side corner, whatever that is. that's what makes these things kind of fun, right? Not being too serious. But so yeah, so as the things that controls, marketing managers and directors can put as controls for these meetings, so it doesn't get carried away where you have, maybe, the 8 or 10 people made a part of that discussion, because that can go in 8 or 10 different directions. So
Sure.
what can a marketing manager do to kind of control that conversation?
Well, in that case, they do need to, remain a mediator. And I think just setting the tone up front that it's a conversation and that ultimately there doesn't have to be a 100% clear answer at the end of it, that you're there to hear what they have to say. And it's really important to hear what everyone has to say, because again, educating them too. I mean, I don't want to go over that. I think it makes a lot of sense to have, whether you have a steering committee or when you're, a committee made up of people who want to be brand advocates. It should touch on every area of your business, first of all. But first and foremost, I think educating them as to the importance
You're right.
Having a brand. Sorry.
Yeah, I run brand workshops in the past where, the structure of it was, I have a 60-page PowerPoint basically that, it's here's what the brand element is, right? You have brand purpose or mission or vision, and then you have so you have the what it is, and then you have the definition of it, and then you have examples of it, and then we have key questions that follow up from that, right, to start that conversation. So that's obviously, this is what we do, right? This is what we work on together with clients and had a lot of success doing. But what gets that to work is the education. You're exactly right, because it's amazing. I've run across some very successful business owners and executives and marketing people that, have even like you look at brand purpose and mission, a lot of people mix those up. Right. Or maybe they're not sure exactly what brand essence really means. Right. Or tone of voice. Really what are some of the key elements that should go into a brand story and a lot of these different things. And so as we're having conversations to figure out how do we shift our messaging towards, to what our audience wants, but more importantly, to identify who our audience is, which is the whole reason why we're doing the brand exercise. We need to make sure that they have context to what element we're talking about. So we're talking about tone of voice. They know what that exactly means, right?
Absolutely. And helping them make the connection, because so many people, especially when you first start introducing this, think, oh, well, that's just a marketing thing, or, it doesn't really affect me. But when they realize that it touches every single one of us in an organization, and that they all should be and can be evangelists for our brand. They're the ones out there, in our community, speaking on behalf of, or delivering a service, or whatever the case may be, on behalf of the brand. And again, just like you said earlier, I think, yes, having all those things is key, but it also helps. It actually makes things easier. It actually should, having the focus of the brand strategy should make all of those decisions that come after. What are we writing on social media? What blog post are we putting out? All of those things come easier when you have a plan in place or a strategy in place. So.
Yep. Yeah, and it stems from that it stems from that education and having those conversations, and more importantly, documenting it, right? Here's our brand strategy document. It doesn't have to be perfect either, right? Like it could be a working document.
Well, and again, just like all of us, it's evolving. We're constantly evolving as people and as brands.
Oh, yes. Yes. And it's also things too that you said it there. It's a guiding point for everything else. So, we're kind of in this weird period right now where we feel like we have to shift our messaging, where the advertising and kind of business as usual, right, is not going to resonate well potentially with our audience, assuming we know who our audience is, and gone through that exercise. But when we identify that, really this thing is for the long term. This brand strategy document helps us to decide what platforms do we market on, right? Like,
Sure.
we know we're going after a certain type of executive and go through that client, building client personas.
Go where they are.
Right. We know who they are. We know how to target. If we're looking about Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads, we know how to target them. We know how to, we get to that ad set screen where it says about, here's your target demographic and behavioral targeting options and all those types of things. We know what to fill out, right?
Right.
Before you get to that point, you could be an quote unquote advertising expert, be expert at the platform and understanding how to do these things. But if you don't have that information, or you're assuming you're going to get it from the business and the business has it right, 9 times out of 10, that business doesn't have it right if they haven't gone through the brand strategy, right? Because they haven't defined their audience. They haven't defined exactly what they want to segment. So, that's absolutely critical. In wrapping up, Melissa, this has been awesome. Just getting some good insight here, some tactical things that marketing manager can do to kind of control the situations, in really controlling their marketing, controlling their messaging right now. What are some things you want to leave our the viewers or listeners that are on this, or they're looking at this right now or hearing this? What do you want to leave them with what to do as of May 2020 kind of thing right now as we're doing this, but also what they should be considering for their brand and messaging as we go forward, as we shift towards that new norm?
Well, I would again say if they don't understand their audience and they don't have a strategy, that now's just as good a time as any to dive right in. And if you do have some understanding of your audience, and haven't gone the extra step of maybe building personas, that again makes message development much easier when those exist. But at least overall, I would say, do not stop communicating. But again, just like if I have a relationship with you, and that's what a brand should be doing, is building relationships with their audience. If I have a relationship with you personally, and I know that right now you are having feelings, whether it's anxiety, excitement, whatever it is, when I'm communicating with you, I'm going to be sensitive to that. At least if, I'm a kind human, I am. And that's what we need to be doing. Finding them where they are, delivering what they need. And if we don't know, ask them, ask them, or listen in on social, see what they're saying. What else? Surveys.
Yeah, survey. And right now, especially polling is huge right now. With LinkedIn, Facebook, all that, and the fact of even asking the question.
Yeah.
Hey,
we care.
What's important to you right now?
Right.
Like put your media and your spend behind that, and watch the reactions, right? Like you're going to get the feedback, like that's going to help you with your brand, but you're also going to, and what's going to help you figure out how to shift your strategy, right? Because you're listening, you're putting dollars, you're boosting these posts and different things, or even just running them as ads or whatever, putting out your email list and sending them to a survey that way. A lot of different ways to do it, but just the fact of even doing it shows that you care, right? Which is empathy, right? Which is what
absolutely
gets people to like each other.
Yeah. And we touched on many things to do, but what not to do is, like we may have said, business as usual. Like it should not be about sell right now. That is coming across as insensitive and tone deaf. It should be more about serving up what they need.
Yep. Absolutely. So, well, Melissa, We'll cut it off. Our first episode right here. I think we've kind of wrapped this up, given some people some ideas, some things to think about, and some tactics, obviously, to consider as they're adjusting their strategy. So thank you again for coming on.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Definitely have you on again, talk about some other different topics. I know you're also an expert at developing content.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely touch base on a topic there. Can't wait for that.
All right.
So, well, with that said, thanks everybody for watching. Again, the first episode of Smart Marketing. And if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments section wherever this is at. If this is on LinkedIn, if this is on Facebook or my blog or wherever the heck it is, we're on the podcast. Please go ahead and comment. Let me know your thoughts, maybe some topics you want to hear right now. What's important to you that I can cover during this particular show that is going to help you right now, exercising what we talked about, Melissa, in doing that. So definitely throw that in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And stay tuned for the next episode.